Welcome back. Bombshell news out of Orlando tonight in what looks like another black eye for the FBI. The father of Omar Mateen, remember him? He's the terrorist who gunned down 49 people in the Pulse nightclub attack back in 2016. He was just revealed as an FBI informant. That's according to court documents and testimony in the trial of Noor Salman, Omar Mateen's widow. Authorities killed Mateen on the night of the attack, but his widow is facing federal charges for obstruction of justice and aiding and abetting her husband. Remember, she dropped him off that night. At the trial today, an FBI special agent testified that Omar's father, Sadiq Mateen, was an FBI informant for more than a decade prior to the Pulse nightclub attack. And according to reporters in the courtroom, the agent also revealed the FBI was considering making Omar himself an informant. Nice. This despite the fact that the agency knew Omar had previously spoken out to friends and associates about having ties to terrorist organizations. That was all a joke, I'm sure. For more on this incredible story, let's go to former LAPD detective Mark Fuhrman and Terry Turchie, who formerly worked in FBI counterterror, and describing both of you gentlemen in that those bland terms don't really capture it. But I've got to say, when I saw this cross, I thought of both of you saying, we've got to get you both on tonight. Terry, let's start with you. How is it that we're just learning now about Omar Mateen? We had kind of not heard much about him in the aftermath of the attack, but now we learn his father was an informant, and then they thought about actually recruiting Omar himself, but then they also found out about these musings about his connection to terrorist organizations.
I think what surprised me most about this, Laura, is that we just now learn it. I mean, usually when you're in the lead up to a trial, you have to disclose everything you have that might be relevant to the defense. And in this instance, they waited a long time. And I can tell you this, that literally within minutes after the shooting at the nightclub and after Omar Mateen's name was known, the FBI knew that Omar Mateen was connected to Sadiq. They would have done an indices or an index check, and they would have known immediately the FBI had prior interest with these people. That's not at all unusual. What I'm surprised about is that they would have decided during the lead up to this trial to not say anything about that until now, because you could take big chances in waiting this long. As it turns out, it appears the judge late this afternoon said, look, this is not relevant, this continues on. But there's a lot of questions here, and the one glaring thing that comes to mind, if Sadiq was in fact an FBI informant during that time, and I think the phrase was various points between 2005 and 2016, it's very possible he was even providing information on something else, and they decided we need to keep that part of this as quiet for as long as we can. But ultimately, it was the prosecution team that had to make a decision, and the DOJ, of if and when they were ever going to reveal this. And of course, today it was revealed, and it makes you feel uneasy, and it's a little bit hard to explain it, because the average person would say, that doesn't make any sense. So it's going to feed a lot of conspiracy theories, regardless of how it goes from here on out.
And Fuhrman, what effect might this have on local law enforcement? Kind of be bigfooted by the FBI here on this.
Well, Laura, you know, it's my experience, and I don't know if Terry will agree, but the FBI is rather rigid with their investigative techniques, and they do not like to share information. Information is power, and they prefer to keep all of it in-house. So it's very difficult. Boston bombing was a perfect example of that. They don't want to share information with metropolitan police departments, no matter if it's a specialized unit or not. But I look at this situation, and the first question I have is, he was an informant for what? And they're trying to recruit Omar for what reason? So it's obvious that the FBI felt that Omar did have a connection to terrorism, and that he could possibly, if they could flip him, give them information that they could otherwise not obtain. So not revealing this would be obvious, because they don't know if they made a mistake or not, but they'd rather play it safe.
Yeah, I want to play for you, Terry, a soundbite from Director Comey, of course, June 13th, 2016, about this matter. Let's watch.
We're also going to look hard at our own work to see whether there is something we should have done differently. So far, the honest answer is, I don't think so. So far, we see no indication that this was a plot directed from outside the United States, and we see no indication that he was part of any kind of network. It is also not entirely clear at this point just what terrorist group he aspired to support.
Wouldn't that have been the time, Terry, for the Director Comey? By the way, this was a presidential election year. Let's not forget that. 2016, we were fudging a lot of stuff in 2012 when Romney was running against Obama during Benghazi. I know I'm sounding really cynical here, like conspiratorial, but the Benghazi thing sticks in my mind. It wasn't a terror attack. It wasn't caused by a video instead of a terror attack. Now this, like, we don't say, well, his father was an informant. You could see how that coming out in an election year. Imagine what Trump would have done with that against Hillary. Go ahead, Terry.
Laura, there was a day I would have said here, especially after I first got into the FBI, and I would have said, you're absolutely right. I mean, this is just absurd. But it's hard to believe in this day and age, and listening to Comey there, first of all, again, he knew at that point in time when he gave that press conference, as did Sally Yates, who was standing next to him, that Sadiq Mateen was a bureau informant or had been a bureau informant. I don't know why they chose not to say anything about that then, but I believe that they'd already made a judgment that there's some reason that we can't bring this up, we can't front this yet. We're going to wait and let the prosecutors figure it all out when we get closer to trial. I fronted one of those possible reasons. Maybe he was reporting on something else. To go back to something Mark said, and I do agree with him, in national security cases, and especially since 9/11, but really this goes all the way back to the days after Watergate and the hearings, and then FISA, which of course we're talking about all the time now. The FBI changed. It changed dramatically in dealing with national security issues and domestic terrorism. And we are still now, I think, in my opinion, paying a price for guidelines that aren't keeping up with what we're now facing.
All right, Mark, really quickly, close it out.
Well, you know, when I listen to Terry talk, and he's an FBI agent, the thing that FBI Director Comey was commenting on is it's interesting that he is sure that they were not involved in a network, but the network lives inside the brains of these terrorists. And, you know, it's been 17 years since 9/11. I think they've figured out how to not get on the radar a very large percentage of the time to actually still have contacts and still be part of a terrorist network.
All right, guys, fantastic segment, as always, with both of you.